Wow, David, you have quite the educational pedigree here. Johns Hopkins, Duke. What did you study?
At Duke, you study basketball.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How to play it or how to
How
it
to
works.
everyone's a basketball. Actually, when I went through, they didn't have minors, and so the joke was everybody minored in basketball. But I studied biomedical engineering and electrical engineering at Duke.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Tell me about the tip you might have for tinnitus.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember the name of this. So it's not a PEMF, but it was a mat that we got, and it had a probe. And so it's a different frequency probe, and that one of my friends specifically, that was the only thing that moved the needle on his. And so you just kind of hold up the probe to your ear.
Send me a link, man.
Okay.
I'm willing to try anything at this point. It's a mystery that I haven't solved. I have a couple interviews coming up with experts, and oftentimes I am doing shows, selfishly in a way to solve problems that I'm trying to overcome. And just hoping there's enough people out there that are like, oh, damn, I have that. Cool. He found a solution that works. And, that's one of the things I enjoy about doing what I do is I get to continue to go on my healing journey and take some other people with me.
Yeah.
So I'm always like, my ears perk up when someone's like, oh yeah, I heard someone found a way to fix that. It's a really weird issue because, obviously it's brain related and we don't know what the hell's going on in there. You know what I mean? There's so many variables. It wasn't that long ago we didn't even believe in neuroplasticity, or we weren't even aware it existed. That was not that long ago, and we were sure about that. So it's funny the way science and research progress, and we learn so much more as we go.
Yeah, and there was no, you couldn't regenerate neurons, and now you can.
I was glad to hear that, because when I was a kid, I did quite a bit of drugs, and I always felt like, man, I would have been much smarter. But back in the 80s, as they would talk about, if you used marijuana, that you would kill your brain cells and they'd never come back, and you'd be a dim-witted, Neanderthal forever. And when that latest research started emerging, I was like, cool, maybe I can grow some back. Seems like you can.
Yeah.
I feel like I've restored some of that.
Just get some stuff that makes BDNF and you're good to go.
We're going to talk about that. So one of the things I like to do is dive into the science of unique molecules, substances, compounds that really move the needle for our health and longevity, that are lesser known and emerging. So everyone knows you need your vitamin E, your retinol, your vitamin C, right? It's like, I think by now we figured out that if you can't get stuff from food, that you can take supplements, your B vitamins and so on. The list is endless. But then there's this other category of compounds that are, which we're going to talk about today, that are at least at some point derived from food, which is your area of expertise. And you guys at Mara Lab seem to have zeroed in on some of my favorites and the ones I find most interesting, and also, which we'll unpack later, found a way to make them more bioavailable.
That's correct.
So over time, we discover things like quercetin, for example, or berberine, and everyone gets all excited because there's some research that's valid. And then later on, we learn, well, that's fine, but you're spending a bunch of money on these supplements that your body doesn't identify and you can't absorb. Therefore, it nullifies the excitement about what they can do for you, because something in a petri dish is different than the way the biochemistry of the body reacts to it and either utilizes it or not. So I want to talk about some of the things you guys are up to, and we'll start with the sulforaphane, but quercetin, berberine, resveratrol, and I might have even missed something.
The curcumin.
Curcumin. Yeah. So those are the things I want to talk about today. But let's start with the sulforaphane, which is a really hard word for me to pronounce.
Sulforaphane. Say it with us.
I was practicing this morning. I was like, it has the word sulfur in it, which would, since it's derived from broccoli, that kind of makes sense. But yeah, I'm going to learn it one of these days. So How did you first become interested in that particular compound?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me on. It's really great to be here today. So, my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer back in 2012, and so we actually had read about sulforaphane in different studies, and so went out to buy some, but what was on the market was not sulforaphane. It was called sulforaphane glucosinolate, and actually bought a lot of it before I realized that was the precursor molecule. And then, we had kind of did a shotgun approach to her cancer care, and that didn't really work. And so it spread. Then we ended up taking some cells from her cancer, growing them in our lab, and doing more a personalized approach where we put 60 different things, supplements on in the petri dish to see what killed her type of cancer. And sulforaphane was number 3 in directly killing her type of cancer. So went out to buy it again. It didn't exist in a supplement form because it's not stable. So historically, if you try to put sort of broccoli extract in that has sulforaphane in capsules, it degrades, and you don't get it. It degrades within weeks. That's why people grow broccoli sprouts, is because it's a form that's you can use, you can juice or whatever, masticate it, and you get a sulforaphane in a usable amount that makes a difference. And the whole might as well dive into this now, because the whole precursor molecule is what most broccoli supplements, all but really 2, ours and another one, they don't have sulforaphane in the capsule. They have glucoraphanin, which is also called sulforaphane glucosinolate. And it can say it, a lot of them say it in the advertising, we have stabilized sulforaphane. Amazon, everyone will say they have sulforaphane. You turn it around the back, even some more bold companies will actually say sulforaphane on the ingredients. You get their certificate of analysis, it's sulforaphane glucosinolate. So it may be deceptive, it may be ignorance, who knows? It's probably a little bit of both. But most people, they come across our supplement, and it's like, it's $50. This one's $20. I'm going to go with this one, And it's like, well, why don't you just flush your money down the toilet? Because that's essentially what it does. Nothing. Buy some good seeds, make some broccoli sprouts. It's much more, you get much more sulforaphane than if you take these other capsules. So anyway, we basically ended up just growing. I joke, we had a broccoli sprout operation that could supply 10 families, but we juiced every day, and occasionally, they would go bad. You get the mold in there, and or you're traveling. At the time, I had a 1 and 3-year-old, and so it's kind of hectic to do everything.
I totally forgot, dude. I had a sprouting operation when I got into it back in, I don't know, early 2000s. And I was so excited. I bought like the best sprout growing, device and all that. I lasted for like 2 weeks and then gave up. It's not very practical for me, at least.
Yeah. You have to, it was kind of, life and death. So we made it work. But I kind of, in passing, I grew more cells in our lab. His name's John Gilday. I was like, it sure be nice if we could stabilize sulforaphane so we could put it in the capsule. Well, fast forward 2-3 years, John comes to my wife Mara and I, and he's like, I've stabilized it. And we're like, you're kidding me. And he's like, basically he'd been working on it for years. And so he sent it to a third-party lab. Sure enough, he'd stabilized it. And at the time, we were both with another supplement company called Restore, which is now Ion. I got supplement, and we just didn't want to bring it in, and it was just easier just to let it lie. But Mara was like, we got to get this out there because the research is clear. It's like a game changer. And so she pulled the trigger on raising the seed money, and then ended up taking a turn for the worse. And then she passed in September 2017, and we ended up getting the seed money in and starting the company in early 2018, and just have it not look back since. Trying to
Hence
get
the name Mara Labs.
Mara Labs after my sweetie.
I knew that about you from my research, and I just can't imagine that. I don't know how one lives through that grief. And I also just lack experience with people close to me dying as of yet, knock on wood. But when I heard that, I'm just like, how do you even go on? What, I mean, sidetrack here.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't want to get into it, I totally respect that. But you know, what's that been like for you as a human, and just dealing with that emotionally and carrying on?
Yeah, in retrospect, I would have started the company a little bit past, not as fast. But yeah, it was, about, and my boys were 5 and 7, or 7 and, 7 and 9 when she died. And it was like, I'm a stuffer. Like, I stuff my emotions and don't cry, but there was no stuffing. It was just like spontaneous, like at the most inopportune times, like, blah. And I think that's part of it, is just letting the emotions out and being real. But, I have a faith. And so having that outlook that, this is not all there is, and I'll see her again, is certainly important. I think also it's very helpful that my boys are doing well. We have I have a great family, Mars family. Her mom's in town. My parents are close. One of her sisters is close. The other one, she has an identical twin who's in Santa Barbara, and
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so after Mara died, we actually went out there a lot and took up surfing. We all are swimmers, and so that was kind of an easy step and very fun. And so, I mean, emotionally, it's the first year was very rough, and just and then after the first anniversary, the first Christmas, first of everything is over for me. It's still bitter, still hard, but it was just different.
Is it kind of like, I mean, because I've heard people share how they've dealt with loss like this, and it seems to be that if you don't stuff it and bypass it, and you summon the courage to feel it, it seems to be with deep hurt, that it's almost like a well where if you just allow it to process and process and process, eventually you hit kind of the bottom of the well. And I'm sure it's never like, oh, this is great, but there seems to come a point at which that acceptance kicks in when you've felt kind of all there is to feel about it. Has that been your experience to some degree?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I think now what happens, instead of like being overcome with emotion and sobbing, it's like how did that happen? Like, because we had done so much, and we were a step ahead of it until we weren't, and how is this my life, versus like, but, it's also, I think, having a mission of our company is to cultivate lifestyles of wellness for generations to thrive. So, what if my family's doing well, thankfully. My boys are doing well. But what if Mara was still here, and she was here to see my kids graduate high school, and to be a resource for them as they had kids. It presumably would be a much richer option, but it's not an option for us. It can be an option for others. And so, we also it's a multi-generational mission. Like, we don't want grandparents, you have the stereotypical armchair grandparent who can't move, hey, and then you have the ones that actually are on the floor engaging with the grandkids, playing Legos or whatever. And so that's sort of our vision. So, a lot of our products are anti-aging and really move the needle with the aging aspect.
Awesome. Yeah, I think too, the thing you touched on of having faith is such a huge part of it. I mean, I honestly don't know how anyone deals with major life challenges without a framework that there's more to reality than we can perceive. You know what I mean? We were talking about documentaries. I watched one. The production value was really low. I think it was a bit dated, and I don't remember the name, so forgive me on the show notes, folks. But it was a series about people that had had near-death experiences. And I have a book over there, which is like a Bible of near-death experiences that I've just, thumbed through here and there. Haven't really read it, but it was really interesting. The universality of their experiences, despite the various circumstances of their physical deaths, and the duration of time that their heart wasn't beating and that they were clinically dead. But the thing that was universal about it is that they all said it was the best thing ever. They didn't want to come back. And not all of them, but the majority of them were immediately met by their loved ones who had already passed. And, an atheist might say, oh, that's just a hallucination from the DMT in your brain. I don't tend to abide by that, just based on some experiences I've had in life where I go, oh, okay, yeah, you have a soul and there's no such thing as death.
Yeah.
I interviewed a guy the other day that said something beautiful. He said, we were talking about reincarnation, and he said, many people believe in the afterlife, but it's really not the afterlife, it's the other life, right? There's just versions of you, essentially. And I don't know, just philosophical contemplation like that brings me a lot of peace and solace, and knowing, you still have to go through the human emotions and the attachment, and like you described, living your life now and imagining what it would be like if she was here and all of that. But I think it would be a dismal life if you really just had a finite perspective that this physical world, our physical body, is all there is, and then it just ends. How do you even deal with anything?
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And we were talking about the World War II trip. My boys and I went in September to Europe to look at, and just the documentaries we watched ahead of time. And on the soldier side, the U.S. soldiers, I mean, vast majority of them had a faith. And that allowed them to, there was fear, but there was this idea of a greater good and a faith that allowed them to do some things that were pretty crazy, dangerous, and the bravery and the idea that, if they died, there was something more.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that and indulging me. Always working on just expanding my capacity as a person. So I love talking to people that have gone through something difficult that I've not yet experienced, and taking cues. I take notes. Okay, when this happens, it's not an if, it's a when, right? Yeah. For people that we love, to kind of arm myself with the best possible attitude about it. I'm curious, what were the other two? You said that this one was the third compound that you felt were effective in the cancer cells. What were the other two?
Yeah. Look, you'll be shocked at how few people ask that question, follow-up question.
I mean,
so you win the star. You got a gold star.
You got to know, man.
Yeah.
Was one of them by chance phycocyanin?
It was not.
Okay. Do you know what that is?
I don't even know what that is.
It's the blue pigment in spirulina.
Oh, interesting.
I interviewed a really brilliant woman the other day who was talking about, actually, she showed me some slides of cancer cells in a petri dish, and they put this blue pigment in there and it nukes them. It's crazy.
Yeah, that may not have been one that we put on, but if I would love to get my hands on some, because a lot of our assays, how we test our supplements, we put them on these breast cancer cells called MCF7s, We do a lot of our synergy studies. So do the supplements work together, that sort of thing. So anyway, we're always testing. So it'd be great to get another toy to test with.
Yeah, I'd love to see the outcome of that. So what were the other two then?
Vitamin C and curcumin.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Yeah, the vitamin C makes sense. The Linus Pauling work and these, high dose vitamin C IVs and stuff.
Yeah, we did so many. I mean, that was probably her lifeline, was a lot of vitamin C IVs. And then, yeah, the curcumin. And that the curcumin, and you read about the curcumin in the studies. We did, this putting it directly on her cells. But a lot of our research was like, first of all, what's the best curcumin to use? Because not much, if you just use straight curcumin, less than 1% gets through the gut barrier. So not enough to really do much, as far as getting to the cells.
You can't just eat a chunk of turmeric.
So yeah, people, there are supplements that have ground up turmeric in it. And so I think about 5% of turmeric has the actual curcumin in it. And so I'm talking though, if you get 100%, if you get it refined, so it's 95% pure or very heavily purified, only 5 or less than 1% gets through the gut, of that gets through the gut barrier.
Wow.
And so, and people feel a difference with non-bioavailable curcumin, but, and I think that that's true in that a lot of that curcumin actually is staying in. It does, if it doesn't get through, it stays in the gut. It goes through the colon, the small intestines, and those cells are getting the benefit because it's directly on. And a lot of inflammation, a lot of important stuff, immunity, and your immune system is in your gut. So I do think there is a place for non-bioavailable curcumin, but the problem is a lot of the brands say theirs is bioavailable and it's just not. So
I want to, well, we'll actually just skip around and get into that now. So years ago, I started hearing about the benefits of curcumin, and I learned that it was derived from turmeric, which, by the way, people, it has an R in it. So many people call it turmeric. It drives me crazy. turmeric, whatever. It has an R, folks.
Yes.
Anyway, I digress. That's my OCD kicking in. And so then, in the health space, we started to learn, this compound's really good for you, but it has low bioavailability. And then so supplement brands in their marketing started saying, well, we found research that if you add a black pepper extract to it, that then it activates it. And then some time went by, and then I started seeing information in the blogosphere and podsphere that doesn't really do much, and that's fake news. What's your perspective on making it bioavailable? Because that's one of Mara Lab's claim to fame on all of your stuff, is that you've done research and are able to verify its bioavailability. So tell us a bit about that one.
Yeah, I mean, for the black pepper, I do think that one so there are really two issues. Is the curcumin getting through your gut barrier? And then the second is what's going on after it gets through? Is it actually getting to the cells? Is it impacting the pathway, which is NF-kappa B, which is the pathway that all the it's the holy grail that the pharmaceutical companies are going after when they create an anti-inflammatory. And so, so the first part, does it get through? Well, these companies with black pepper, that can be an irritant, right? And so it irritates the gut lining, and some more can get through than just regular curcumin. In the studies, the most bioavailable curcumin is Novasol. That's also the reason it's bioavailable because it's 97% detergent.
What?
It's polysorbate 60. And
dude.
And it's 3% curcumin. And nobody's talking about that. It's just like, so we actually, they're the one to do the head-to-head with, but we're not just looking at bioavailability. We're looking at we actually have a measure of inflammation. Is it actually improving inflammation? And I'm trying to make sure I don't actually get a letter with a lawsuit on it. So I may.
You can be as cryptic as need be. I mean, that's one of the frustrating things about conducting these conversations with people that manufacture and sell health-related products is that due to the regulations, you can't make, quote, medical claims, right? It is frustrating for me because I'm like, no, say the thing. Like, well, if we were off mic, you'd be able to tell me exactly what it does and do so ethically and authentically. I always feel like, oh man, it's kind of your hands are tied. And I get it. Also, somebody needs to regulate snake oil salespeople. And, I don't want to waste my money on things that don't work and have false claims and things. But in the cases where there is legitimate research and the benefits are verifiable and have been proven, it's frustrating to not be able to share that information with people that have high inflammation or dealing with something like cancer, and you can't say like, yeah, take this thing, it's going to help. We've proven so.
Yeah, and so what we did was we took actually a large amount. So I think we took, a gram of regular curcumin, gram of Curcumin, a gram of Resveratrol. Well, having that much detergent in your gut, actually what it does is it strips the gut bacteria of the lipopolysaccharides, and LPS is a toxin, and so you can get a pretty if you take that much, you can get of that product, you can get the runs, and you can be really sick.
Oh,
you can get sick. It also did not decrease inflammation. It increased inflation.
That's the opposite effect. Right?
Which is kind of funny, but it's also like, I mean, just like really, that's the gold standard. And it's a little bit frustrating that people aren't talking about. They're talking about bioavailability so much, they're not talking about functionality. Like, what's it actually doing? So anyway, that's there are some other ones. Mariva was sort of the first to market. They do or that's sort of the dried liposomal. That's about 3 times the more bioavailability. But it's, in the end of the day, what we're trying to do is like, we want the next best thing besides an IV. Like, we want as much as possible to get the curcumin through the gut barrier to the cells and impacting the NF-kappa B, so you can feel the difference. So people with joint pain love our product. Like, that's people, you can take 2 at night and wake up. A lot of people wake up the next morning and can notice a tangible difference in their joint pain. And I mean, it's just like the proof's in the pudding. So
awesome. Well, that's very interesting information about the curcumin. And one of the things I love to do on this show is to debunk things and help people not waste their money, because I've been into the supplements for, I don't know, 20, actually, no, even when I was a really unhealthy person, I was taking vitamins from 7-Eleven. But I would say, like, in a more educated way, probably 27, 30 years or something, and spent so much money. And then down the road, learned that I was just buying expensive pee. You know what I mean? It's like super frustrating. So I like to save people from that. But going back to the curcumin, you really got my attention with the proven effects on inflammation and joint pain. And it reminds me, Austin sent me some of your stuff, like a sample pack of each one or whatever. And I burned through it very quickly just to try it out. But I didn't know why I was taking any one of them. So I didn't track like, ooh, if I take their curcumin product, is my, knee pain or back pain less? So I'm going to try it again and do a dedicated trial of it, to see how that works, because that's very compelling. What are some of the other known and proven benefits of curcumin before we move on to some of the other goodies?
And I will say, with the curcumin, actually, you were talking about expensive urine. because ours gets through your gut barrier into your bloodstream, you actually will look. It will look like you're dehydrated. Like when you pee it out. It doesn't mean that it didn't get to your cells. It means those are the byproducts, and it means it actually did get through and it is working. And that won't happen with the others. If it doesn't get through the gut barrier, you poop it out. So yeah, curcumin. I mean it has other. I think it helps with. There's another pathway that it helps with called NRF2, which is more. So curcumin is the best natural molecule at turning off the pro-inflammatory pathway NF-kappa B. It does other stuff though, so it's good for it's good for brain health. It's good for cardiovascular. It's good for this NRF2 pathway, which sulforaphane in the broccoli is also good for. Not 100% of our curcumin doesn't get through the gut barrier. Some of it's still left, and there's a modulation of the gut microbiome too on the positive side. So all of those things.
Cool. All right, with the sulforaphane. Sulforaphane. I don't know some words, man. Just don't. I just can't do it.
You got it.
With that one, it's interesting when you were talking about juicing the sprouts and making the sprouts. It reminded me of the old school Gerson cancer treatments.
Oh yeah.
Right, there was like a lot of juicing of sprouts, and I didn't really know why. I thought, oh, maybe it makes you more alkaline or whatever it was. I never really looked into it because I, thank God, haven't had cancer. But I was unaware that that's what we're going for.
Yeah, Gerson's a little different. I mean, Gerson is hardcore. They have it's a volume juicing, whereas like with if you have enough broccoli sprouts, like 2 of our capsules would be the equivalent of like 2.5 ounces of broccoli sprouts. The interesting thing too, Luke, is not all broccoli seeds have the ability to make sulforaphane. And we were looking on Amazon. We're looking for sources of organic seed because there's really not. We use so much seed; it's really hard to find organic seed. So we use organic seed when we can, but then we also just use other good sources that maybe not be certified organic. But we were looking for sources when we bought 5 different brands off of Amazon, and none of them. This was in 2020. None of them made sulforaphane. And so we were like, whoa, what the heck? And so we did, I think 9 months later, we did the same study, and we did 7 different brands, and 6 of the 7 did. And some of them were the same brands. And so it's just like, what was that, So that, I think that's because of that, and because people want seeds that they know actually work. We sell our seeds. We sell our seeds on our website, not to be a seed company, but just to give people the option. And so it basically a half pound will equate roughly 400 milligrams of sulforaphane. So that's at the least.
Do you think some of them lack that ingredient due to being hybridized and breeding and things like that? They just inadvertently bred it out or something?
Has to. It's one of those kind of shocking things that's just like you swallow hard and be like, okay, glad we test.
What about the and I'm not an expert in this particular area, but from what I understand, Brussels sprouts, kale, watercress, broccoli, broccolini are all basically the same genus with kind of a different personality and slightly different flavor profile. But back before they were hybridized, they were essentially just one plant, whichever one it was. Do any of the other kind of brother and sister plants contain this stuff, or is broccoli specifically where you have to go to get it?
So there are cousin molecules to sulforaphane that that are slightly different, but they're called so basically, if you have something a head of broccoli, it has this precursor molecule to sulforaphane called glucoraphanin. It's stable. You start chewing the broccoli, you break the cell wall, it releases an enzyme that cleaves a glucose off of that molecule and creates sulforaphane. Well, cauliflower has a cousin molecule that the similar reaction occurs. Watercress has a similar molecule, and those precursor molecules, the family they're called glucosinolates. Once that glucose molecule is cleaved, those molecules are called isothiocyanates. Those ones are not stable. And so we actually, our broccoli product is called BrocElite Plus. And it's plus because we read a paper where they put sulforaphane and the one from watercress. It's called phenethyl isothiocyanate. It has a phenyl ethyl group.
You're really good at pronouncing these difficult words.
Why, it's been 7 years, so I've had a little bit of practice. So, but if you put them together, you get a 3 to 5. It's basically a 5 times effect versus sulforaphane alone. And so, and that effect is stimulating NRF2, which is that's responsible for what's called the antioxidant response system. Over 200 genes that get turned on and stay on for 72 hours. You get antioxidants pumping out for 72 hours. And so, if you think about vitamin C, you get one vitamin C molecule canceling out one prooxidant. With sulforaphane, it's not an antioxidant, it's creating them in your body naturally. And so I think that's a pretty cool thing. The NRF2 is also responsible for phase 2 detoxification. So basically similar to how curcumin is the best at turning off NF-kappa B, sulforaphane is the best at turning on NRF2. And so NRF2 is responsible for antioxidant response system. It's responsible for phase 2 detoxification, but it works in all 3 phases. And so, everybody, you hear these docs take my detox protocol. And unfortunately, a lot of them stimulate phase 1, and you get what's called the detox flu. You feel sick.
Yeah, the Herxheimer reaction.
Yeah, and so what actually sulforaphane does is it slows phase 1, it speeds up phase 2, and then so phase 1 is basically you're making the toxin less toxic. Phase 2, you're getting it into your you're making it water soluble, so you can basically start excreting it. And then the phase 3 is binding, excreting. And so it does all 3. And so, there are a lot of Hopkins studies, some great studies of Hopkins looking at metals. There's one out of that they partnered in Beijing with, if you've been there, huge air pollution. And so they just gave these sulforaphane beverages from broccoli sprouts because Hopkins actually discovered it in 1992. They discovered sulforaphane. They weren't able to stabilize it, so they had created this huge broccoli sprout growing operation for the studies. It's called the Chemoprotective Institute up at Johns Hopkins. And so this study, they showed that just drinking this beverage, about 10, 15 milligrams of sulforaphane, they could pee out a huge amount of toxins. So that's the detox.
That's awesome. What a trip. So if this compound is encouraging your body to produce more of its own antioxidants, is one of them glutathione? So I'm thinking about the sulfur content in broccoli and those other, what do you call them? Cruciferous vegetables?
Cruciferous vegetables,
Cruciferous.
yes.
And glutathione, if you take it, as a supplement, it smells like sulfur. Like I use these Mitozen. It's too much information. I'm sorry. It's just funny though. I mean, it's a great product, but Mitozen makes these glutathione suppositories, like high dose, which is great because it's, you get a longer blood plasma than you would even from an IV, but they're notorious for giving you sulfur farts, rotten egg farts. So I'm familiar with the kind of the sulfur personality of glutathione, you could say. Is there a relationship here between that particular antioxidant?
Yeah, it definitely, the NRF2 pathway does increase glutathione.
So it increases the glutathione production within your body.
It does.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And so right now, I've been doing this. Have you heard of Glynac?
No.
Glycine with NAC.
Oh, yeah. I heard someone talking about that on a podcast the other day.
So 2 studies, one 2 years ago, and the other one came out this year. Create like on 70 somethings doing, it's a lot. It's 8 grams of each. So it's a ton. But over like a 12-week period, I think, maybe it's 16 weeks, and it just reversed a lot of age-related markers big time. And those are the building blocks of glutathione. And so I've been doing that with the BrocElite. Has been, I think, really helpful.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Is there a company that comes to mind that makes a combo product of the glycine and NAC?
Not without a filler. So I was actually...
God damn, these supplement companies, man.
So I was taking 35 capsules to get the 16 grams. And so I told my guys, because we don't use filler. And so I was like, I just make me some without filler. Because I was taking half of the stuff. So it dropped it to 20 capsules instead of 35 capsules. So we make it, but I make it for me, but I can get you some there.
Have you thought about adding that to your suite of products?
We've talked about it, but it's like the only value add would be we don't use filler.
Okay.
And then like you have to take 20 a day, and so it's like we just give people these baggies, these gallon bags.
Right.
So anyway, it's something we've talked about. It's also like, apparently, that how many people want to take that much, and so
exceedingly few.
Yeah.
I'll turn my wife on to supplements, and even if they're too big, she won't take them. Or if she has to take too many,
Yeah.
I'm like, here's your dose, and it's 5 capsules. She's like, I'm not eating 5 of those.
I'm pretty disciplined, but it's like last week, I think this past week was my worst week, because you have to take it throughout the day. Because if you come at night and you're faced with 20 capsules right before bed, it's just like, oh man.
Yeah.
And so I think there's 3 nights this past week, which is the first time that's happened since I started in August, where it's just like, I don't care. I'm not doing it.
Remember a couple of years ago when there was some regulation around NAC that was supposed to take effect, and so
you loaded up?
Yeah, I went I went full hoarder. I have a cabinet of NAC, and then now I go to the health food store and I'm like, it's right there on the shelf.
This is my perspective on what happened. So it made it. I'm not saying it's the gospel truth. However, my perspective. So basically, one of the guys I took the first day I took those 20 capsules. I'm a swimmer, swim with my boys, and they're getting a little bit faster, than me, and so I'm having to like really work at it now. And my shoulder was just it for 2 months had been killing me. They would less killing, more nagging, and I have stuff that helps with inflammation, right? So I'm taking it, I'm rubbing it on with topically with DMSO. I'm just working it, and it's still there. And so I take this glycine NAC 16 grams, and then the next day, gone. The next morning, completely gone. And I'm like, whoa. And so another friend of mine, actually, it was the husband of one of our customer service people, his friend, and it's like, you got to have here, get it, and he's into trying stuff, so you got to have him try this. And he had, I didn't know this, she told me after, he'd had this little asthmatic cough for about 2 months. Couldn't get rid of it. Was taking all sorts of stuff, even some antibiotics and stuff. First, one dose, the next day, completely gone. Well, I was talking to John Gilday. He was like, well, that's actually one of the things that NAC was really good for COVID because it broke down the fibrogen or the fibroids that the inflammatory response was creating, and that was and that's why it was taken off the market by the FDA so that they can then roll it into a pharmaceutical. So basically, there you have this supplement that's working. FDA is like, oh, this is working. This is actually working.
God forbid people get healthy on their own.
And so, the supplement industry actually, I don't know if this happened before, but there was this huge response by people and the supplement industry and people who take supplements, and they reversed it. But you still can't buy NAC on Amazon because they have their pharmaceutical arm now, and they're really, I think they're still thinking it's going to come out as a pharmaceutical. Maybe, I don't know.
That's interesting. So it was like the ivermectin of the supplement world. I remember seeing things. I think it's eased up now, but an MD would prescribe someone ivermectin and they go down to CVS and fill the prescription. They wouldn't fill it. I'm like, what is happening here?
Yeah, that happened to me. I was so sick, and like my CVS right by my house, this pharmacist comes out. He's like, "This is not." Anyway. Whoops. He's just like, "I'm not filling this for you because it's not." And like, well, it's not your job to, like, my doctors, like, there are off-label uses for every pharmaceutical. Like, it's not your job, but it wasn't his decision. It was CVS's decision.
Yeah.
And I was so sick. I'm like, I'm so mad at you right now, but I'm just going to, so I just walked away and went down a little bit further down the street. And do you guys have Wegmans?
I'm familiar with Wegmans. I don't know if we have them in Texas, but I've seen them, I think actually, you're from Virginia.
Yeah.
I went to Wegmans in DC.
Yeah.
Is it Wegmans?
Wegmans.
Yeah. That's what I remember from you.
Take it there. They're like, yeah, sure, we'll fill it. It was like $120. I'm like, oh, like, now I know. Like, this is a pure profit center. Like, it should, cost like like in the third world, it's like pennies.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, but now I get mine out of Tennessee. There's a compounding pharmacy. You get it for $30.
Yeah. People found their ways around that. I mean, I even at some point in the height of that scare bought some of the horse paste, the apple flavor horse paste on Amazon. I still have it in the refrigerator.
My mother-in-law got it, and that's actually what I took first.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's the same stuff. It just probably has GMO corn oil that it's
not ideal,
but accessible. But yeah, I mean, just I do feel obliged to say, since this is I guess, what's a word for it?
Propagandized.
It's there's some propaganda to it. It's been looked at as you are, like, not in reality if you think that works. But the reality of the situation is, if you look at the peer-reviewed studies, a load of them now, if you go into science literature, it works. So, I mean, that's personally, like, it, the literature wasn't fully developed like it is now on it, but there were some, I think, one or two decent studies, but a lot more anecdotal evidence that it was working. I was about as sick as I've ever been, and I took the first dose, went to bed, and that next morning I was probably 40% better. I was like, oh, thank you. Again, anecdotal, but that was my experience. And it's a lot of other people's experience too. But fast forward 2 years, and there's a body of data. So it's. I think that's where I'm just like, let the data make decision. They make the decisions versus politicians.
Yeah, 100%. The way my brain works is when something's suppressed, it just makes me think that it works. It's like,
So you're that guy.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if these captured agencies really cared about people's health, they would do things very differently. I mean, you just look at how money is squandered, in so many different ways geopolitically, and then you look at a problem like any health problem or homelessness or any of the things that are troubling our society could be, if money's the answer to those problems, at least, could be so easily and quickly fixed or remedied or at least funded, for example, and they're not. Therefore, they don't care. Like in the past 3 years, it's like the first thing I notice is why is there no advice about adequate sleep, getting sunlight, getting your vitamin D, fitness, not being obese, just the basic fun. Like, why is there no encouragement to just live a healthier life? It's like, oh, no, we can't talk about that. That's a conspiracy theory. The only solution is the one that we want you to apply. And so when anything like that happens, I'm just highly suspect. And that's a big clue that I'm kind of on my own and I'm going to have to figure this out, which is how I've lived most of my life. And I think many people listening to this show at this point probably share that perspective, like just personal responsibility, health sovereignty. There's great medical professionals and experts and scientists out there, sure, and thank God for them, like people like you that are doing great work in your lab. But there is also a lot of disinformation and a lot of nefarious stuff going on. There's a bit of both.
My oldest son is studying the Constitution, and there's the idea of self-governing, where you're talking about you taking responsibility for your health. That concept is unfortunately not common nowadays. It's like, doc, tell me what pill to take. But I mean, you mentioned obesity and exercise, and I think bringing up the topic of obesity, metabolic syndrome, diabetes, type 2 diabetes, in the context of our Berberine product, maybe something we can talk about.
Oh, cool. Let's do. I want to make sure that I get all my questions in on this one before we move on. But I'm very interested in Berberine because I think I've had a lot of expensive pee with Berberine too.
Or poo.
Which we'll find out. But there was something that I read, and it might be in relation to the detox pathways that you were referring to, or the added glutathione production. What's the relationship between glyphosate? This is a ubiquitous issue now that thankfully more people are becoming aware of. But still, it's in just about everything. I was listening to RFK Jr. podcast yesterday, and there's something I knew, but he just articulated it in a really succinct way, where in commercial, conventional wheat farming, they discovered that they could, at the end of harvest, spray glyphosate on the wheat crops to desiccate it and dry it out and increase the profitability and their margins because of the speed with which they can,
they get a second growing season.
Is that what it is?
That's why they do it in the northern climates.
Okay.
It's they don't do it in the southern climates like it's in.
Because even if it was just sprayed for its intended use, you could say, well, maybe some of it gets washed off with rain, and
a lot of it does.
Maybe there's not that much present, but if you're spraying it and then cutting it and putting it into donuts, then you got a real problem.
No, that's what you outline is you can get some of the more toxic, more glyphosate rich foods from wheat, but thankfully, there's not a ton of them there may be more doing it now, but that conversation's been going on for a decade now, and so the issue with that is, basically glyphosate, that what you outlined with that you're getting a mega dose, so that's doing some damage, but typically most of us are just getting microdosed daily, and so you go to let's say Five Guys or McDonald's, depending on the oil that's used for your fries, it'll probably be a little bit in, if it's vegetable oil, which it probably is, there'll be some, which soybeans or canola oil, it'll have a bit in there. Again, these genetically modified crops, they spray to increase the yield. So they spray, kill the weeds, the crops don't die, but then they can grow and you get, in theory, a larger yield. So that, again, in theory, you're feeding the nation, which again is that's why the USSR crumbled, is they couldn't feed their population. So that's the idea of feeding your population is big. This is a solution for better, for worse, probably for worse. I think we'd agree that they've come up with. But so from a health standpoint, what the heck is it doing? And so our research has shown basically, basically there are three things. One is it's increasing the just a amount of glyphosate you get in a regular meal. That maybe it's slightly high. You're eating genetically modified foods, and you're getting a microdose exposure. That amount basically, one of the things it does is it increases the gaps in your tight junction. You're basically it's opening your gut barrier, and that's bad because your gut barrier keeps stuff that shouldn't be in. It keeps it out, and so what happens is if your gut barrier is open long term, you can get these allergic responses or maybe intolerances. You hear people, I'm intolerant to this, and then that can roll into allergy. And then if you're always on as far as an allergic reaction, or often on, that can then develop into autoimmune. And so there's just this kind of a funnel effect of things that happen. So anyway, what works with it degrades your tight junctions. It degrades your body's cell-to-cell ability to communicate through what are called gap junctions. So if you cut your hand, how does or you have a cut, how does your body know to reform that skin and connect the skin? If you think about it, that's a pretty crazy cool thing that it just does normally. It's communicating. All those cells are communicating, and it's saying, okay, we need more material to here and here. And so what glyphosate does is it decreases your body's ability to communicate through gap junctions, which are these connections between cells networked all through your body. In medicine, there's the guy who studies kidneys, the guy who studies heart, brain. But the reality is we're functionally coupled. We're whole beings. Everything communicates. And these gap junctions are part of that communications network. Glyphosate turns that off, and that's really bad. The third thing it does is it drops NRF2 production by about 30%. NRF2 is, and that essentially turns it off. And what that does is, again, I talked about NRF2 being the pathway that's gets toxins out of your body. Well, all of a sudden, if your NRF2 pathway is turned off, all these toxins become that much more toxic. And so I called glyphosate, because of that, it's sort of the mother of all toxins. I think actually I didn't come up with that. I think Jeffrey Smith, if you know Jeffrey, came up with that. But it makes every toxin more toxic because your body can't get rid of it as easily. So, what's the solution? We thankfully, when we did these studies on tight junctions, on gap junctions and NRF2 and glyphosate, we also put our product BrocElite on the same cells and showed a reversal of the effect.
Damn.
And so it actually so sulforaphane, NRF2.
So you just gave me an excuse to eat pizza.
Well, that's the gluten. Gluten does increase your tight junctions as well. So basically, the master regulator of tight junctions is NRF2. Sulforaphane is the best natural molecule at stimulating NRF2, and so it's basically really good at keeping those tight junctions intact, and it reverses the glyphosate's degradation. Similar with NRF2, it actually turns back on its production and gap junctions. Again, it reestablishes the communication network. So, I mean, that's sort of the very speedy description of those studies that are a bit more nuanced. But again, John Gilday was our brains and of the operation, and so we talked through, hey, it'd be cool to see what does glyphosate do with this? What does it do? And so he walks through them and is able to show us.
That's so cool. You reminded me, because you both worked on the ion product, right, formerly known as Restore. I remember when that hit the scene, it was like there was a lot of buzz about that. A few years ago, I interviewed Zach Bush.
Oh, you did?
In San Diego. Yeah, he's been on a few times now. We'll put that in the show. We'll put everything, you guys, in the show notes, by the way, at lukestorey.com/Mara, M-A-R-A. We'll link to the Zach Bush interviews. But anyway, we did this great interview kind of toward the beginning of the COVID situation, and he was just talking about viruses are everywhere, they're fine, don't freak out. It's a great conversation. Even retroactively, I recommend people listen to it. But anyway, we do this conversation, we're getting to know each other, having a great time. Hey, let's all go out to eat. And we're in kind of suburban area of San Diego. There's no like organic places around, so we end up at an Italian joint. And dude orders orders pasta, and then they bring bread, and he's eating the bread, and I go, Zach, dude, how much glyphosate's on that? And he's like, no, I take my ion every day. I'm good. I mean, I'm sure he doesn't eat like that all the time, but I was like, talking about practice what you preach, there must be something to that, because he has the body of knowledge that would, signal to oneself like, oh, hey, that's off the menu. I'll get some fish or steak or whatever, that is not gluten. And he was just having a great time living his life. It was helpful for me because I would say more so then than now, tend to lean on the orthorexic side of being afraid of the environment and everything I eat and being so hyper vigilant about it. But I thought that was interesting. And after he told me that, then I started really upping my game with the ion, especially if I was eating something suspect. I'd take a shot of it before or after, and maybe follow with some activated charcoal or something like that, because it's just difficult to live your life in the modern world and try to be so controlling about every little thing. So I'm always looking for add-ons to the strategy that make life less constrictive.
So a funny aside on ion, which was then Restore. So my background's in sciences. Mara was diagnosed with cancer, and she was like, she was a nurse, and so she had seen what chemotherapy did to people, and she's like, I don't want to do chemo. And can you look at natural molecules that would be kind of like a natural chemo? And so it's like, sure. And so we're heading down this integrative path, not just poo-pooing, traditional, but also not saying it's all right. And then I was like, we have, whatever we do, it has to be. We just promised ourselves that it has to be a breadth of literature backing it. I don't want to do kind of crazy stuff. And so we wind up in Zach Bush's office back in 2012, and he's just a country doctor at that point, and he. Really, nice guy, wrote on this no labeled white kind of Boston round plastic bottle, 2 tablespoons twice a day. And I'm just like, and there are no studies on this. He's like, no, it's brand new stuff. And so we're driving back up to where we lived, and I call up John Gilday. He's like, hey, John, just met this guy, gave us this bottle. Can I give it to you so you can just make sure it's not poisonous? Just give me something. He's like, here, bring it by. So I brought it by. And Zach actually had some a notebook of soil science papers that I gave it to him too, but it wasn't on this product. And so Long story short, the next week, John, who is like never sick, he's like once in a every 2 year period, gets sick. He's sick. He's in bed, and he's flipping through this Swole Science papers and thinking about this product, and like here's this audible like from God. This is the antidote to glyphosate, and he's like, dude, this doesn't never happens. So it gets better, and figures out some. And sure enough, he tests stuff. Uh, he's sick in bed, and so he's figuring out how he's going to test this. And so he does, and comes back, and sure enough, there's some. It was very good at, again, the tight junction.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So that was Mara was at the center of that.
Oh, that's so interesting. Wow. Do you think there's any legitimate utility in taking a couple activated charcoal capsules after one eats a bunch of gluten at a standard restaurant where the likelihood of it being full of glyphosate is high? I mean, not super, obviously we're talking about tightening those junctions and making the gut less permeable, but I always think about, just taking some, like a bentonite clay or charcoal or something to kind of suck it up on the way out.
Yeah. I actually am a fan of activated charcoal. I think in terms of toxins, yeah, I mean, the issue with glyphosate is it's water soluble, so it may just go, it may just go it through, whereas like the activated charcoal would kind of get rid of the stuff that's left in the gut.
Okay.
And
so you might have already absorbed,
maybe
would just instantly absorb the water soluble glyphosate. Okay, noted.
Yeah. And then the clay, I haven't done a lot of research on the clay, and there's somebody asked me about silage, and I have seen, not all, I can't say carte blanche all silage is bad, but a couple of the ones I looked into, I'm like, yeah, I don't think that I would do that, but there's so much out there, right?
Cool. Noted. All right. So let's talk, I think we covered, let me just make sure I got everything I wanted out of that one. I mean, God, there's a lot to the sulforaphane, but I do want to cover some other stuff. So I think
we just throw out.
Did we miss any like low hanging fruit, big moving parts here?
So BDNF is at the center of brain health. It helps protect existing neurons. It helps grow new neurons. Sulforaphane in broccoli actually, it actually upregulates BDNF. And so we have about 25% of people who take our product have very vivid dreams at night.
Oh, interesting.
And that's BDNF. And so when I was doing customer support early on, I would be, I'd get people calling in, hey, it's not working. We have a very generous kind of no questions asked money back guarantee because we want people to try it because we know it works. But we also know everybody's different, and some people may not notice a difference, and so that's fine. And so this guy was like, hey, I want my money back. It doesn't work. It's like, okay, it's not a problem. Hey, let me ask you, have you had vivid dreams recently? And there's this pause. He's like, no way. It's like, that's this? It's like, yeah. And so kind of explained to him. He's like, that's amazing. So anyway, BDNF, brain health, very important topic, especially now. And there are some, we can't talk about specific diagnosis, but mood-related issues. There's a whole vein of literature on mood-related issues that sulforaphane is good for. And then one of my favorites is balding.
You got my attention now.
The DHT, the type of testosterone that leads to balding, basically the sulforaphane downregulates that. And so I would be bald right now, I think.
Really?
Yeah, without it, I think.
All right, I'm getting on the mega dose. I do my best to not get caught up on vanity, but I don't know. There's something about the receding hairline that is it's hard as a guy, or at least this guy.
There are so autophagy, so basically helping cells that need to be shown the door, they need to die, that are having trouble dying. Those cells can, that have trouble dying, they can lead to cancer cells. Well, sulforaphane actually helps and promote autophagy, which is the programmed death of those cells.
Really?
Similar with mitophagy, mitochondrial. Fasting is good for mitophagy too. So when we don't eat, one of the benefits of fasting is you actually kill off the mitochondria and the cells, for that matter, that need to be killed off. Well, in this scenario, if you're not fasting, sulforaphane basically does the same thing. And so both of those are, fasting's anti-aging. Both of those aspects of sulforaphane are anti-aging. I will say, mentioned watercress before. So John, our scientist, developed his own assay through a buccal swab in your cheek to measure NRF2 activation. And so he can show, competitor products don't activate NRF2, whereas ours does. And one of the reasons it does is that PEITC, that chemical, cousin chemical from watercress that we put in it as well. And that's a pretty unique thing that, again, nobody's talking about, but we think it's really at the center of why our product is the best.
That's badass. So it upregulates mitophagy and autophagy?
Yeah, both of them.
Wow. That's badass. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it has about 5 other anti-aging things it does that we won't go into, but I can.
That's incredible. Wow. I knew I had to talk to you for some reason, and now I'm learning why. Okay. But I do, in the interest of time, want to cover some other things. I think the next thing we were going to talk about was the Quercetin.
We can talk about Quercetin.
The Quercetin, your version of it is Quercetin. And in my notes here, I see, like, as it says on your site, and by the way, thank you for putting all the PubMed links on your site too. I'm like the geek that will go in and be like, all right, they're saying it does this thing. Is there any research to support this? But this is another one that's like bioavailable. There's definitely a marked intention to designate these products as a percentage bioavailable or more bioavailable. And quercetin's one of those ones, another one of these compounds that I learned about years ago, and learned that it was most present in capers. And so I started buying jars of capers and just pounding those.
Yeah.
And then I heard
onion skins.
Well, oh, really?
Yeah.
And then I heard, yeah, that's fine, but you're not going to absorb much of it. So again, it's like, God, here's this thing that's been proven to do great things for the body. And, how many capers can one eat, right?
Yeah, we all in our company, we all save the onion skins. It's like the most nutritious part of the onion.
Really?
And then we'll throw it into the broths, and then, in like a cheesecloth. Because I think that form actually, it does get through, but it tastes nasty if it's just by itself. It's also good if you are dyeing Easter eggs, right? So,
right.
But so yeah, it's not bioavailable. I think with quercetin, I think it's less than 5% gets through. And so, what are the things that it does? So one is, there are things we can say, can't say. So with seasonal sneezy issues that that basically helps nip those in the bud. So basically, a friend of mine, this was before we did our Quercetin. This basically, John had made this sort of a 1.0 version. Some friends came over, and this girl, this daughter of our friends, couldn't even go outside because of the reaction she was having to the pollen. And I just put some powder in this 50-ounce kind of test tube, shook it up with some water, had her down it, and 15 minutes, it was it was a complete reversal. And so, the issues is that, if you're in that reaction, you kind of have to take a bit more than the 2 that we recommend. If you're getting ahead of it and so you're not in the reaction, 2 should be fine to kind of maintain. But if you're in that and you want to get over it, maybe take 2 every 2 to 4 hours until you notice the shift. The other thing that quercetin does is there are cells that are the zombie cells, the senescent cells. So quercetin is a senolytic, so it will show those cells, help those cells die. So the senescent cells, it secretes things that kill every cell around it, and so it's very pro-aging. And so the quercetin helps kill those cells. So those are the 2 things we talk about with quercetin.
That's super cool. We have something here in Texas. I don't know if y'all have this back where you're from, called cedar fever.
No, don't have that.
Oh my God. There's a shitload of cedar trees here. The cedar trees are cool. They have a great energy.
Yeah.
I like them. I like the way they smell. I walk by and, grab their needles, and they have a really nice kind of terpene essential oil to them. So they don't bother me. But last year, my wife, Allison, got hit with this. We didn't know what was going on, and then started asking around, and people were like, oh yeah, that's cedar fever. Many people get it here. One person gets it, the other one doesn't.
Interesting.
It was like she had Lyme disease or something. She was wrecked so much to the point where finally we just had to leave. I drove her down to the coast for a few days just to get a reprieve somewhere where there are no trade winds,
Yeah.
Carrying this pollen. It's a real thing, man. And the people that get it tend to get it really bad. So I'm extremely glad to hear about that. And I have noticed a lot of your sort of, I guess I can say the word because I don't sell anything, but a lot of people that get these reactions to things in the environment that plants make, a lot of the products, the natural products, will contain that quercetin, or as you call it, quercetin. I think we have to agree that we pronounce things differently. Tomato.
Yeah.
So, you'll look at the kind of ingredient deck of a lot of things that are over the counter at the health food store for this. And we tried a bunch of them and nothing really moved the needle. There was nothing helped.
Yeah.
Even the homeopathics where somebody takes the juniper berries and, does a dilution of them or whatever. It was kind of like great marketing. You read the bottle, you're like, this is the silver bullet here. And really nothing worked except just leaving town. Because like you said, with that particular issue there, and I've not thankfully suffered from that in my life, but seems like once it gets a hold and you're in that histamine reaction, like you're toast. But if you can get ahead of it, it seems like you have a much better chance of staving it off than trying to retroactively kind of get yourself out of it once it takes hold. Do you know what the relationship between the quercetin and the histamine response is? Like how does it work if you happen to know?
It is.
If it's too hard to dance around, it's fine. I understand.
There's some dancing and some just rustiness.
Okay.
So yeah.
Combination of both.
Yeah.
Anyway, you gave us your anecdotal story that is helpful for that. I'm going to bank on that, and I'm going to
and with all of this stuff, if people want to try it, I mean, it's the type of thing where we want things to be a win-win, and so we have a 100-day money-back guarantee. Like, just try it. If you're like, it didn't work, like we are not going to be offended, and you can just get your money back. We just want to try the stuff because a lot of people.
I appreciate that. I had the guys from Bioptimizers on the other day, and they're one of our longtime sponsors on the show. And I think they have a year money back guarantee. And I asked them, I was like, how do you guys stay in business? And they're like, we just don't get many returns. It's really rare because their stuff is high quality and it works. And I thought, man, that should be like the gold standard in the supplement industry is some period. I mean, a few people have a 30-day, I guess, here and there, but it's, I think, less the norm. But what a great insurance for people that are spending their hard-earned money on something and then it just sits in the cabinet because they didn't get a noticeable effect from it. So I like that policy. And on that note, I have in my notes here too, you guys have a discount for the listeners, which I always appreciate. If you guys go to mara-labs.com/Luke Storey, you can save up to 28%, which is really cool. All right, let's talk about berberine.
Berberine.
Yeah, and this is another one. Again, not to be a broken record here, but I showed you my old bottle I've had for years in there, and I think I had high cholesterol or blood sugar problems or something. And functional medicine doctor said, "Oh, you need to get on berberine," and so I did, and then I kind of forgot about it. Found the bottle in the pantry, got on it again, and then started learning that this is one of those ones too where the bioavailability is an issue. So maybe tell us about about this particular compound, what some of its benefits are, and why some are easier to assimilate than others.
Yeah, and so I think the actual study showed 0.6%, 0.68% of berberine gets through the gut barrier. And so very, very little of it gets through the gut barrier. And so what berberine does, and what people have probably, if you've heard of it, you've heard it in the context of regulating blood glucose and the blood glucose spikes and that sort of thing. And so so basically, regular berberine, though, it actually takes about 6 to 8 weeks for that regulation to kick in. And so with our product, we call it BrocElite. We did this study. You basically take 2 capsules so basically you have dinner, don't eat overnight, skip breakfast, take 2 BrocElites, and by noon you'll be in a light ketosis.
Really?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
What if you stack it with exogenous ketones? I love this ketone IQ drink. I mean, I don't love the flavor. I don't love it like I love a tasty beverage, but I had 2 already today. It's like my secret weapon for energy, mental clarity. I'm just obsessed. Do you think there'd be any added bonus to stacking those 2?
Yeah, and so the whole idea of being in ketosis is that you are using ketones as fuel. So typically, how energy production works and how energy usage works is you use glucose in your cells for energy. So 1 glucose yields 1 ATP. Adenosine triphosphate is through this the Krebs cycle, which is in your mitochondria, which is why your mitochondria is sort of the energy production center of your body, and so, which is why mitophagy is so important. The killing of old mitochondria to allow growth of new mitochondria. And so with ketones, though, if you actually are keto adapted, you can use the ketones as fuel. In that same Krebs cycle, you can put 1 ketone in and you can get 1.5 ATP out. So it's more efficient. The issue, though, is it takes time. It takes even a month or so of being in ketosis to really fully adapt to using ketones well. And so that the person who did that example of being in light ketosis by noon, if they weren't keto adapted, they probably wouldn't use, I think it's, half, 0.5, I think was one of the measures that's coming to mind. It's true, you're in ketosis, but your body's not adapted necessarily to use everything. So if you throw that drink on there, yeah, they might use some, but again, it depends on your adaptation to using ketones. And I think, it's important to kind of talk through, because we were talking earlier, there's huge obesity, huge metabolic syndrome in the country, and type 2 diabetes. And so, if we think about like what's really going on there, so you have like, basically, if people have diabetes, they have trouble, processing their glucose. So you have insulin. Normal people, you eat a sugary, a carbohydrate meal, a sugary meal, you get glucose in your blood. Well, insulin is produced. It's the signal to every cell to turn on and receive glucose. It gets into the cell, it's processed, it's utilized. But with people with type 2 diabetes, there's a sensitivity. Those receptors on those cells are desensitized, and so when the insulin's there, it's not. Those cells aren't getting in the same amount of glucose, and so what's going on is they're starving, and so that's why it's this metabolic syndrome. You have high glucose, you have high insulin, and you're not able to process that insulin. And so what can happen is when you have both of those high, it's your body's signal to start saving it. So start saving the energy stores as glycogen. So glycogen goes into your muscles. It can go into your liver, but once that's filled up, it goes into fat. And so the glucose gets processed into and turns into fat. And so one of the things with with berberine, that's good. And let me back up to before we talk about berberine, things that are the bad thing about having glucose in your blood is it's sort of anti everything healthy. Because what you wind up with is things called glycation in products that are, it's kind of like ROS, like oxidants, and it's basically rust. You're basically rusting inside, and advanced glycation in products. And so it's having all that glucose in your blood, basically it leads to inflammation. It can lead to the diabetes and super fast aging when you're getting all this rust in. And so things that are pro insulin are typically not good for you. Things that drop your insulin are typically pro health, pro longevity. So enter berberine. So berberine basically I suggest people take it at night because it can process glucose. The issue with nighttime, if you eat late at night, once your melatonin kicks in, it arrests your insulin production. And so you basically will be, if you eat a sugary meal or what have you, that glucose will be in your body all night. If you take berberine, it actually can help begin processing that glucose. The other thing too is, we talk about exercise. So going back to how energy is stored, well, it's stored in your muscle, it's stored in your liver, and if you exercise, that's why exercise is good, is that you're burning the glycogen in your muscles, you're burning the glycogen in your liver, and that's also what can happen with fasting. If you do a multi-day fast, the glycogen stores get burned, but it basically allows for room for glucose to go. Okay, and so that's why when we age, having more muscle is important. So that because the muscle is the way we regulate the glucose. And so anyway, berberine, if you take it at night, after, let's say, a sugary, a late meal, doesn't have to be super sugary, that glucose is not going to sit in your blood all night. And so that's, again, really good. I think I actually was just looking at berberine for glucose and ketosis. And, we had heard about it actually after Mara died it was about 5 years ago. And it was like, this is amazing, right? But I fanned out to people who are using it and asked for testimonials. So it's like, hey, we're trying to get this product out there. Can you guys just share if you like it because you keep ordering it? What's going on? What are you using it for? And 75% of the people were using it for sleep. I'm like, whoa. I'm like, what's that? And so I go to PubMed and type in berberine sleep. There's a paper that comes up. Berberine better than, is it Vicodin as a sleep aid?
Vicodin's a painkiller.
So what's the sleep aid? It's
not Valium.
Valium.
Oh, Valium.
Yeah,
okay.
better than Valium.
Benzodiazepine. Yeah.
They both begin with a V.
Yeah.
The
funny thing about Vicodin as an opiate is opiates actually make your sleep shittier. I've learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Valium. And so what it's doing is it's actually, this is just regular berberine too. It's not even ours, but it basically increases dopamine by 25%. It's increasing.
Even with the crappy absorption, regular standard
it's in the
berberine?
gut. It's all gut related. So I think, we haven't measured ours.
Yeah.
Ours may do it better, but this was just with regular berberine. And then serotonin 30%. So both and a separate study, interestingly, it increases oxytocin 15%.
Really?
Yeah. So
that's crazy.
Yeah. So all that's, people really like it for sleep, and that's part of the reason. I mean, I think that the anti-inflammatory, like getting the blood glucose out, dropping inflammation is important, but all those other factors are.
Is there any evidence that berberine can be helpful with sugar cravings? So it sounds like it's a good hack after one's eaten some carbs or sugar and you got a high blood glucose, but something that I'll say struggle with because I don't fight it. I just do it and probably shouldn't. But at night, after 9 p.m., you can't stop me from eating sugar. It's like the angel and the devil on the shoulders, and the angel's like, don't do it. You don't need that. Just go to bed. And most nights the devil wins and I'm going to eat some form of sugar. And it's not a great habit. I wonder if, after dinner, taking some berberine would help folks with the actual onset of wanting sugar in as much as it's helpful after one has eaten.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is some evidence to that. I haven't. I feel like, did I see a sauna in here, or was that somewhere else?
Yeah, right there.
Yeah,
the old sunlight and sauna.
Get in that baby, and it'll like stay in there as long as you can. You'll just get knocked out. No sugar cravings.
Really? That's cool, because I usually take my saunas in the morning. I did one this morning. Yeah,
if you do it at night, when I do it at night, I have a great sleep.
I'm going to try that.
Sleep like a baby.
I'm going to try that. I think maybe it's been, not that I've never done that, but I typically do it in the morning, but it's maybe counterintuitive to me because I'm always looking to drop my body temperature.
But it does.
At night. Does it?
It does.
Really?
Yeah. So cold dips in the morning, which actually helps raise your body temperature.
Yeah, I'm doing that on the daily.
And then saunas in the evening will help lower it.
That's so crazy. That's funny. That's very counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm always thinking like, okay, I need to start getting really cold before I go to bed. I mean, I have my Chili Sleep Dock Pro, so my bed's super cold. Thank God. I could never live in Texas without that thing, but that's cool. I'm going to try that. I could take some berberine, then take a sauna, then go to bed.
Go to bed, sleep like a baby.
And you guys also have a sleep aid product that's it's got like valerian and passion flower, that kind of stuff.
It has ashwagandha. So basically, just like curcumin, there are a million curcumin products out there, and a friend of mine calls it the curcumin wars. Everyone says they have the best product. Sleep, there are a lot of sleep products out there, and we just wanted to offer one that didn't have melatonin. Because most of the supplement industry, the biggest category of supplement industry is sleep. The biggest ingredient in supplements in sleep is melatonin by far. But it's a hormone. I'm very pro melatonin. I like melatonin.
Yeah, me too.
But there are people that just can't. They can't do it.
Yeah.
And I think it's a growing number. And so, we're trying to offer things that aren't on the market that we like, right? So that's kind of our MO. And so we wanted a product that we have the Oura Ring. So we we know increases deep sleep, that is not, currently out there. And so it has ashwagandha to help get to sleep. It has BrocElite powder in there for the BDNF. It has berberine for the serotonin and dopamine. And then it has some serotonin precursors, tryptophan, 5-HTP, as well as it's a sleep and mood. So, some people who have mood issues can't sleep. Some people who can't sleep tend to develop mood issues. And so what comes first, the cart or the horse, chicken or the egg? And so we wanted to have a lot of people who have mood issues can't methylate their B vitamins. So we have a methylated B6 and then a methyl donor. And so we couldn't fit, you talked about your wife not liking big capsules. We are very pro small capsule, mainly because what I walked through with Maura, sick people can't take, it's not just your wife, sick people can't take big capsules. And so we want as small a capsule as possible for people, so as many people as possible can take it if they want to. And so we keep it in a small capsule, but the difficulty is you can't get it that much stuff in there. And so we have a methyl donor, and so in a reaction, if you have like a lot of reagent, it can drive the methylation of unmethylated other B vitamins. So that's the rationale there. So it's sleep and mood.
Awesome. I love it. That's the first one I got of yours, and I went through it in a very short period. I liked it. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you notice anything with your Oura ring?
I didn't test it with the Oura ring, but I did find it helpful for sleep, which is why I burned through it super fast.
Yeah.
Probably, I don't know, the way I work, and I don't recommend this for people listening. If a bottle says take 3, I'll start the first night with 10. I'm a dumbass like that. But I kind of want to push the threshold. And then if I wake up, like in that case, I don't remember waking up groggy, but that could be a side effect of taking too much of something that relaxes you. And then I'll kind of scale it back until I find the sweet spot. But I did find it to be helpful. Yeah.
I will say, I'll, occasionally wake up at the 3 a.m. hour, and I'll keep a BrocElite, a BrberIte, and a SleepElite next to my bed. And if I wake up, I'll take them. And inevitably, 9 times out of 10, I won't just sleep. I'll have the best sleep of the night in that span of time. I'll wake up 6:30, 7-ish. Won't be like, oh, can't get up. I'll be like, that was the best, that sort of feeling.
That's awesome. I'm going to try that. Yeah, I do have bouts where I wake up around that 3 or 4 thing, kind of energized, and have to put on a podcast or something to fall back asleep. It's kind of annoying.
I will say with berberine too, one of the most mind-boggling studies, anti-aging studies that John and I have read. John read it, sent it to me. He's like, you got to read this. So basically, they did, it was a mouse study. They aged mice with chemotherapy, all of them. And then half of them, they gave berberine to. Again, regular berberine. I have to look back. I think it was a lot of these studies, they either squirt it into their abdominal cavity or give it IV. So I can't exactly remember how they bypassed the bioavailable issue, but probably IV. They lived 80% longer than the mice that didn't get it, which is just like...
That's insane.
Yes, it is insane. We've never seen a study like that. So that was like... So again, we think, they didn't say in that study, but we think it's against senescence. If you think, what is chemotherapy doing? It's like giving a ton, it's creating a ton of senescent cells that then potentially berberine is showing the door, getting them to die. So
badass.
Yeah.
All right, the last thing, I think, those famous last words. I always think it's the last thing, and then I think of more interesting things to talk about. But Resveratrol, that's been, one of the heavy hitters on the anti-aging scene for a while. I think some of the products I use have some of it in there, here and there. I mean, it's something I see on labels. It's not one that I've researched a lot. It's just, you hear about the blue zones or people in France that, drink tons of red wine, and it's been attributed to their longevity and so on. But I don't really know a lot about it. It just seems to be smart people like you and others are big fans of it. So
David,
I want to learn more.
yeah. Have you followed David Sinclair's research?
No, I haven't.
He's the guy. So
I hear the name
yeah,
around.
he's worth a follow, getting his book. It came out a couple years ago. But he's out of Harvard, and he actually had the Resveratrol company sold to big pharma, that then for like, I think $750 million. And don't quote me on that. That's what I'm remembering. But then they just went belly up, because what they're trying to do was create a synthetic resveratrol. And so I think he had research showing resveratrol is anti-aging. Anyway, if you go onto anti-aging, like I'm on a Facebook group, and everyone's poo-poo resveratrol because it didn't work. The company went out of business. I'm just like, guys, like, that's not. It's like apples and oranges. They weren't trying to market resveratrol. They were trying to create a synthetic version. So you can't say that resveratrol doesn't work. So basically, what it does is there's these different pathways called sirtuins, and SIRT1 is the specific one that resveratrol works against. And so that's the aging pathway. I think so it helps with the SIRT1, and again, a lot of what Sinclair showed that, and he actually, as an aside, like, I mean, he is like, he's like, people like, your children will live to 120 or longer. It's going to be common. What he's doing is he's actually reversing aging. It's not just anti-aging. He has the formula to move it backwards. And so it's a little kind of, it's sci-fi, but John, again, has read all of his stuff and the fine print and everything. He's like, we're like, actually, and John is trying to figure out because a lot of I think there are 4 or 5 compounds he's using most of them are biologics, synthetics. And so John's trying to find the natural equivalents to do the same research. But yeah, it's upon us. So resveratrol, great for anti-aging. The issue is, as with all of them, it's not bioavailable. So like typically you read like Sinclair takes 1 gram a day. Again, what ours does is we combine it, we attach it to a protein. So our technology is we have a protein that we attach a C-based carbohydrate to, and we create sort of a novel molecule that we then attach these phytochemicals to. Resveratrol is one of them. Basically, it gets to the gut barrier. The other issue is that with the resveratrol, there's like the first pass metabolism, and so ours stays in the circulation a little bit longer, so it can get to these cells.
Do you guys have patents on any of these?
So that molecule we have a patent pending on.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so that's our technology. Hopefully, we'll get it.
I'm imagining your laboratory. I'd love to. I'm the guy that watches the how we make stuff shows and all that. Like, I love to see behind the curtain. Yeah. Do you have what I'm imagining it to be? Is this kind of mad scientist? Your partner John's in there with beakers and test tubes, and is it like I imagine how you guys are doing this research and developing these novel ways to deliver these compounds?
It's cool because he's been in the industry so long. Like, he can go on Amazon or eBay. He's like, oh, this plate reader, like, what used to be $100,000 and it's for like $2,000. And he's like, get it, and so then we just get all this equipment that's world class that people have. There may be 2 upgrades ago, but he can still use it and do cutting edge stuff. Or we have a microscope that was like $300,000 that we got for $10,000, stuff like that. So it's just, pretty cool.
So cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love geeking out on science in that way.
I will say,
I mean, I think because I'm not a scientific or mathematically inclined person, but I really enjoy people that are because I'm not. So I find it fascinating.
Yeah, before we had our labs, we did a lot of I basically converted my kids' playroom into the lab.
Oh, for real?
So we were buying this equipment. So basically, with her cancer, what we did was we wanted to figure out, how do you know that when you give her like a curcumin product that we know kills her type of cancer, how do you know it's working? And so we got this thing called a digital PCR, and I found a unique marker on her cancer called a SNP, a single nucleotide polymorphism, that was basically her biomarker, so that if it killed the cells, the genetic material would lyse, and we would be able to measure how much lysed. So it's, again, personalized medicine. But I had to buy this, and the guy came to, but they didn't just, sell to anybody. So I had like a hood, a microscope, a plate reader, incubator, all in this. I was literally 100 square feet. So this guy comes in and he's like, "This is the most amazing room he's just, because usually you have a room, you have a big room, and it was all like concentrated in this 100 square foot room.
Dude, I love it. I love it.
So that was the mad science. Now we're a bit more mainstream.
You guys have legitimized yourself a bit since then. With the resveratrol, as I understand, that's derived from grape skins. Is that correct?
Yeah. So the grape skins, the grape seeds have it.
Okay.
And then ours comes from like a Japanese knotwood is the source that's just readily available.
Oh, cool.
So that's.
And what does berberine come from?
Yeah, it's a plant. So it's actually similar to it's Ayurvedic, and so Indian, Chinese, 3,000, 5,000 years old. Been used for gut stuff for a long time. Similarly with curcumin, it's been around forever.
Oh, cool.
So it's ancient.
It's its own plant.
It's its own plant.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Man, so cool.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, thank you so much, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love deep diving on this stuff, and it's so it's fortuitous that we got to cover so many of my favorite anti-aging compounds in one conversation, because oftentimes someone, I don't know if I can have a whole podcast about berberine. You know what I mean? Maybe I could if someone knows enough, but these are all things I've been interested in and using, just kind of like I said, because I hear online, it's good for you. All right, I'll take it, but.
And what are the two that we're missing that you like?
Urolithin A and spermidine. Those are two that are very interesting. And incidentally, I have done shows dedicated to either one of those, but they're kind of, novel, heavy-hitting, well-researched anti-aging compounds that I take on a regular basis. With spermidine, interesting about that. And I don't know that I can solely attribute this to spermidine, but it's known to increase sperm counts. It's present in natto, the fermented soybeans. That's like the highest food, but it's difficult to get a lot of it from food unless you eat a lot of natto. And most people don't like natto because it smells and tastes like feet. But anyway, I did a sperm test because we want to have a baby, and I just I might as well check because it wasn't really happening for us. Checked, sperm's just annihilated, gone, 0, total F on all metrics of sperm measurement. Then I learned that taking saunas is really horrible for sperm production, as is exogenous testosterone, which is counterintuitive. I had just started taking it, never taken testosterone. I thought, I'm going to give it a shot, see how I feel. I'm taking a very low dose weekly intramuscular shot, and I learned about the testosterone. So I stopped saunas and stopped testosterone. Well, I eventually started doing saunas again because I figured out you could use an ice pack to solve that particular problem, without going into specifics. But anyway, I tested, and then I started megadosing spermidine, just like crazy amounts that you're not recommended even to take. I don't think there's a downside to it, but it's probably overkill and, diminishing returns, et cetera. Tested 2 months later, and I'm like an 18-year-old.
Oh, wow.
So I don't, I don't know if you could just do that from stopping testosterone and stopping saunas. I suspect it had something to do with the spermidine. So that was interesting. And it's also very useful for autophagy too. There's a lot of studies on that. So I think between those two and all the stuff you guys are doing, if you want to age more gracefully, that's a great stack, all of that. And then also the NAC glycine thing too. I was not really that hip to it until you explained that, but I think that could be another one to add in there. Because there's like, my goal is always just to live with as much vitality as possible and to hopefully not get any diseases between now and the time I check out of this body. I'm not so concerned about how long I'm here, just that while I'm here, I can enjoy my life
Health span.
and be of service, But also, I'm not mad if I live longer and have more time here to develop myself, which is, for me, the purpose of my life is to evolve here, So this area, I think, is becoming more interesting to me. I just turned 53 the other day. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, so forgive people that are younger and listening to this and they're like, dude, I'm 22. I'm not worried about longevity. But trust me, you will be. You hit 50 and all of a sudden you start counting down. Well, wait, the average life expectancy is how much? And I'm 50, It becomes more meaningful, I think, as you get older, to just want to feel good. So I appreciate the work you guys are doing and that you're creating unique and innovative products. And those are kind of the only people I like to have on the show because, like I said, you can go on Amazon and buy 50 million curcumin or berberine products, and God bless them, but they're probably not really going to move the needle. So when I find someone that's doing it in a way that's unique and compelling, I'm really excited to talk about it.
Well, it's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you again for having me.
Yeah, right on. All right. So I'm going to remind people, go to mara-labs.com/Luke Storey. Get yourself that up to 28% discount. Now, before we go, and we'll put that as a clickable link in the show notes for you folks too. Before we go, I got one last question for you. Who have been 3 teachers or teachings that have influenced your life or your work that you'd like to share with us?
All right. So I'd say, Linus Pauling did the vitamin C research. He's the only guy that actually won the Nobel Prize twice.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
So he won it twice. Of course, now the Mayo Clinic did a oral vitamin C study to kind of and tried to debunk his stuff. But vitamin C and IV vitamin C in cancer. There's no such thing as a silver bullet or a monotherapy, but that's as close as it comes. So his research is great. I've been doing, a lot of kind of the idea of omega-3s and omega-3 to omega-6 ratios. I think latest research out is you're having about 8 grams a day, which is a lot, is really pro longevity, pro health span. And it's just the one of the ladies that kind of did that early on, 1930s, Joanna Budwig, was big. She was from Germany, probably would have won the Nobel if she was not a woman. But she actually figured out that if you combine flaxseed oil which is high in omega-3s, with cottage cheese, it makes its own bioavailable form. So
really?
Yeah, you just blend it and it creates a chemical reaction and it's a bioavailable omega-3.
What a trip.
Yeah, and so she was big with cancers.
What about the estrogenic properties of flaxseed? Is that a concern for you?
So if you actually do it with the shells, you can do it without shells. You can do it with shells. They're called. I'm blanking on but that chemical is actually very pro testosterone.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so so you can get a clear flaxseed, or you can get a dirty one, and the dirty one. And I apologize that I can't remember what.
It's okay.
But Barlean's is actually the brand to get.
Okay.
The trusted brand. I'm a big Joel Salatin fan. He's not that old.
Yeah.
But he's local to where I'm at.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
I've always wanted to go see his farm.
It's a pretty sweet farm. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you can make it up
Polyface Farm.
Polyface. Yeah.
Yeah.
So his thing is, and that whole that whole movie where he's kind of got introduced. Michael Pollan, he's the guy that narrates it and has the famous quote of don't buy food where you get your gas,
Sage advice.
Yeah, but if I've met Joel, talked to him on my podcast, and just his view of local, and that if you go and shake hands with the farmer that makes your food, where it's coming from. And I think that's half the issue is we don't know where our food's coming from. Especially the oils. You go out to eat, even if it's an organic restaurant, the oils are a big question mark, and they're typically omega-6, pro-omega-6, and which probably rancid and pro-oxidants, and so it's and maybe even genetically modified, and so it's just I think that the idea of food security, knowing where your food's coming from is important.
100%. Yeah, it's one of the cool things about living here in Texas. There's quite a few regenerative farms around that are making waves, and even a lot of the local farmers that might not even be part of that scene. You can find them at the farmers market, and you get raw E2 dairy and grass finished beef, and they're I mean, I've talked to these guys, and these are old cowboy hat wearing Texas ranchers, and I think, oh, here comes the hippie from California that's going to start grilling them, and they all so far have passed with flying colors. I ask them about the not only the the feed and whether it's grass finished and all that, but if they're vaccinating the animals, and some fairly nuanced questions, and they're like, "Are you kidding me, man? Hell no!" They're old school. It's just they figured out that not only are their animal products better for you, better for the environment, but also better for the bottom line. I think that's the thing that's starting to catch on is man, these poor farmers on all these subsidies and stuff. It's just criminal what they're doing to these families, and the suicide rates for farmers. I mean, it's just diabolical. So
it is. Yeah. Have you followed much with Weston A. Price Foundation?
Yeah. I'm somewhat familiar. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was a dentist, again, 20s, 30s, and but he was from Philly, and did sort of the original oral microbiome research where these kids had lots of cavities, and so he's just started feeding them all a lunch that was predominantly a salad, and showed the shifting of their oral health over a period of time. But now that foundation, the Weston A. Price Foundation, they have a website, drinkrealmilk.com, where you can locate any of your raw milk near you.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's a finder that's national, and then they're big on it's mainly raw milk, but they have a conference that we were at in Kansas City a couple weeks ago, and just salt of the earth people. Everybody's just very. But that meal, I didn't have to worry about. It was like this letdown. Actually, these people were more militant about eating than I am, and so I knew where it was everything was okay.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing when you look at the Weston A. Price photography, when he went, traveled around and visited these people, and you see these big, broad smiles and healthy teeth and fully developed jaws and ripped, low body fat, just it's incredible. If you just A/B a photo of someone like that with a malnourished or overnourished person who's on the average American diet,
sad.
Yeah, it's brutal. It's brutal, and it's crazy that it's kind of that simple. I mean, we're talking about some more exotic ways to improve your health, and I don't believe that. In today's world, with the toxins to which we're exposed, and add EMF and chemtrails and blue light and all the assaults that we face every day, I don't know that you could just eat nutrient dense food from your local farm and thrive. I think we're maybe past that point. Because most of us grew up for the first 30, 40, maybe even 50 years eating Cheerios and whatever, right?
TV dinners.
Yeah. I mean, so it's like, I don't know, maybe if your parents and your grandparents and your great grandparents were eating from the farm and then you want to do that too, you might be all right. But I think it is wise of us to, hedge our bets a little bit and add some things in like we've described today. But
those natives that he took those pictures of too, one of the other contrasting things is they could poop on demand.
Really?
Whereas like the average New Yorker, it's like once every 2 days.
Right. Like I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's funny. I remember when I first got into this health stuff, this is in the late 90s, and colon hydrotherapy was a really big deal. And I was following this health expert who was a proponent of like a raw food, vegan diet, which I tried the vegetarian at least for a while, and it didn't work for me. My health declined somewhat dramatically, especially my teeth for that matter. So I was getting no fat soluble vitamins, no vitamin K2, no retinol, and so on. But one thing he really had right was colon health, and he would talk about this study that he would cite was how indigenous peoples, I don't remember if they were in the Amazon or Africa or wherever they were, but just people that weren't eating an adulterated diet would defecate about 20 to 30 minutes after each meal. And that was they're defecating the meal prior, right? And that's how like a normal humanoid digestive system is supposed to work. And at that time, I was one of like the examples you gave in New York. I'm like, they're going 3-4 times a day. I'm like, if I'm going 3 or 4 times a week at that point, so that was one of the big things that really started to turn my health around, was getting the elimination. Just that was a huge needle mover.
Yeah. And, the big buzzword nowadays is the Ozempic with blood glucose, GLP-1, that what it's also doing is it's your digestive. And so like those, say you pooped once a day, that might be once every other day. We talked about decreasing glucose being pro-health, increasing glucose being anti-health, and it's increasing blood glucose. Or not blood glucose, insulin, excuse me. Insulin, it's increasing insulin is part of what it's doing. And so that Forbes had an article, is Ozempic, or is Berberine nature's Ozempic? And for those reasons, I wrote a blog article. I was like, no, it's not. But I didn't say no. I said, I kind of wrote out the points, and it's like, you make your decision. And I think a lot of people were like, yeah, it is. It's like, you miss it, no, I don't think it is. But
cool. Before we go, you mentioned you had a podcast. I didn't even know that. You want to give us a shout out? Is it up and running and active and people can tune into it?
Marlab's podcast. We are on Spotify, and we have our blog, and we put all of our podcasts on our blog. And so we'll do, we're not as diligent as you. I think we've done a couple this year. We did about 20 last year. So but we do have one we're releasing soon. So
awesome. Yeah. All right. We'll put that in the show notes with everything else we've talked about at lukestorey.com/Mara. Man, thank you so much for taking the time to deep dive with me today. I appreciate it. It's great to meet you.
Great to be here. Good to meet you, Luke. Thank you.